My name is Lizzie, and I registered for the Geek Africa program, and I signed up for the course graphic design, and I hope to be a professional graphic design. And coming for the induction today, I would say I'm impressed. Like, I'm really impressed because I never expected what I'm getting today. And for those of you out there who haven't registered, I would advise you utilize this opportunity and register for a program.
Okay, my name is Ezekwin Dubisi Henry. I'm the MD of Oil and Gas Training Institute. Oil Train is a training institute in Nigeria, one of the most recognized training institutes in the oil and gas. We are in this country, we have been in this country for over 10 years now, training and certifying manpower and providing manpower facility for the oil and gas. So we are about to have a training for Obolo Youth Coalition, and this training, we have selected key courses that these people need to play a part in the oil and gas. Okay, and we have selected these courses so that they can pick the courses and quickly get a job in the oil and gas. The training program is not open for everybody for now, but this particularly is branded and designed for Obolo youths. And they are also, we're partnering with Geek Africa. Geek Africa is an organization that for young engineers who wants to be in the oil and gas and other skills. So you can check them out, Geek Africa, and they are the ones organizing these training events. We are here to train, certified, and do internship for every participant that is going to be part of this training. Whether you're coming for this Obolo use training or you're going to be coming later, we are going to give you skill training that are required in the oil and gas.
Okay, my name is Gabriel Anwana. I'm a trainee for the OIC YEC partnership program for youth, and I feel and believe that it's a very, very welcoming development, which the initiative is really welcomed by the youth, because this is a program that is going to catapult a lot of youth to get skills which will be very relevant for them and also for the Nigerian growing oil and gas industry. So my name is Gabriel, and basically I've been selected as the class leader for this batch. I'm very excited, and I believe this is a skill, a program that will help build hands-on competence in terms of practical skill development, and will help a lot of young engineers to get a grasp of what is happening in the oil and gas industry, as well as function there perfectly. So my expectation basically for this program is to see that the gap between the theoretical things that a lot of people learn in the university setting is being closed with practical skill sets. So when you match theoretical work with practical work, it makes a lot of sense because you can easily run into the industry flying. Yeah? So basically that's it. So for those that have not registered for this program, I will encourage them and advise them and counsel them that they should run and grab their forms so that they will make the best use of this opportunity and get themselves the best skill sets that they can and make themselves ready in case the companies come calling.
All right, my name is Kingston Silvanos. I'm the president and founder of Young Engineers Entrepreneurship. Today, we are in the Oil Train Institute, carry out an induction of OIC, Obolo Youth Coalition trainees. Inducted them into oil and gas program. I want to use this opportunity to thank the OIC for having done it necessary to make this event a success by ensuring that all the members be mobilized across River States and Akwa Ibom State to have East Africa capacity building. We believe in community development. Therefore, it's very important for us to partner with organizations, especially youth bodies across Africa, to train their members. We are making these trainings affordable, almost free, as part of our contribution in building. If you have more partners with people,
and the OIC combined, collaborating through the different programs that we have, professional photography, or many professional courses that are being done. Youth to come for these trainings and to be empowered for their future.
My name is Engineer Dr. Alex Omai. I'm a chairman of OCTAN, Port Harcourt. OCTAN means Oil and Gas Trainers Association of Nigeria. It's a body of training companies that cuts across all the various skills areas in the oil and gas industry. Our role in the training program organized by Geek is to provide them technical support, to provide them a resource base of trainers that would ensure that they get the best and they get quality training that will enable them to get employment, especially in the oil and gas sector. Currently, there are a lot of upcoming programs like the LNG Train 7 that is about to start. There's need to engage a lot of our youths there, but for them to be part of that particular program, they need to have the various skill sets and training that could enable them gain useful employment in this project, upcoming projects.
Hello, my name is Amini Insebi Clifford. We're here live at the Obolo Youth Coalition and Young Entrepreneurship Engineers Club post-COVID-19 training induction. The training is about youth's empowerment and development and an avenue for people to get trained into quality skills that they can use to empower themselves. The purpose of this program is to empower the Obolo youths so that they could develop themselves and alleviate themselves from poverty.
My name is Comrade Gogo Ibirian Ntogile, the Welfare Secretary of National Youth Council of Nigeria under Local Government Chapter. I'm here for the skill and empowerment program being organized by the Obolo Youth Coalition in partnership with Geek Africa. Actually, I'm not just one of the trainees. As one of the youth leaders in Andoni, it is a thing of joy that such a skill is being organized for Obolo youth. All of us are aware of the present economic hardship and the trending unemployment. Most of our youth do not have skills, so we are seeing that this opportunity, if these people actually take time to gain this skill, it will help them to be gainfully employed. So I want to urge all the trainees to take this course serious. So at the end of the day, they will have things that will put food on their table. Thank you.
My name is Engineer Toye Une. Today is just one day. Don't have to thank God because we're in an era where the youth are there, but there are no jobs. But with this development, the partnership between YEC Africa and OYC, I think the gap which Obolo youth have, which is skills, with this training is going to bridge the gap that after the next 3-4 months, the program is going to trump out a lot of skilled Obolo youth who can definitely compete in the oil and gas industry.
My name is Brown Tamno Ibim, and I'm from Okrika in Rivers State. The courses I'm offering are HSC 1, 2, and 3, HSC meaning Health, Safety and Environment, and Project Management. This training has really been productive. It's been really, it's so rich. There are lots to learn. It's very productive. Over the past weeks I've been attending, and I don't regret any part of it. I urge all youth out there to please come and make good use of this opportunity. It's going to be a really good experience, and you're going to learn a lot.
My name is Awadi Chere Atati. I'm from Andoni local government. Actually, the program was something I've never done before. But when I started the program, it made me to understand more about things that I don't know. The program is okay, it is lovely, it's something that I also advise my colleague out there that have not got this experience, because it's my first time experience with such program.
My name is Ibo. I am specifically from Mungo Town, which is area of River State, Nigeria. Actually, I am a privileged student of the training that is currently going on at the Oil and Gas Training Center, East West Road, Port Harcourt, River State. And this training was well packaged and arranged by an organization that is well known in the state and beyond, talking about the Young Engineers and Entrepreneurship Club of Africa. And this training was also organized in collaboration with the Obolo Youth Coalition, which is the umbrella body of all sons and daughters who are from Obolo Extension. And of course, I want to say that this training for me is an eye-opener, because as a graduate, I studied chemistry in the University of Port Harcourt. I graduated 2016 by God's grace. And I would say that personally, most of the things that we are being taught in this training, I never had the opportunity to know them while I was in school.
Ito Mr. Nidante by name, a member of OYC, and about the program, all I can say is it's never been like this before. This is one of its kind.
Hello everyone, good afternoon. My name is Sandra Ejito. I am from Andoni local government area of River State. I'm here for the Geek African training. It has been an exciting one. I have learned so many things. I registered for HSC 1, 2, and 3, but when I got here, we were offered another opportunity to register for 2 extra professional courses. I took the opportunity to register for ICT and storekeeping. So far, so good. I must tell you, it's an exciting one. Please, if you know you're out there doing nothing, I will tell you, take hold of this opportunity.
My name is Darius Ayo. I'm from Andoni, Egendem to be precise. I got information about this oil and gas training organized by OIC in partnership with Geek Africa. So when I got to their office at Dayline, I was briefed and I was interested, so I partook. The training started and I enjoyed the training so far. I like the enthusiasm in the organizers of this very program.
My name is Fineface Velejit Darling, and I am from Andoni local government area here in River State. I actually registered 3 courses under YEC Africa Young Engineers Entrepreneurs Club, and those courses are HSC 123, Project and Facility Management. And also, I took this as an opportunity because I saw what I could benefit and also impact after this.
Wow, my name is Geek. I'm from Andoni, River State. I really want to appreciate Geek Africa for this great opportunity. I'm here. I'm one of the trainees. I'm undergoing HSC and Riga and slinging. I'm so grateful for this. I'm so grateful to be part of this achievement. I really want to urge everyone who is out there to be a partaker of this. It will really help you. Thank you very much.
Hello, good afternoon. Hello, good afternoon, Nigeria. Good afternoon, Africa. It's really good to be here again for yet another day of the Business Development Conference of the Young Engineers Entrepreneurship Club Africa. And of course, as you would agree with me, all of those who have streamed have been following this program in the last couple of weeks now. You can tell that it's been really empowering, it's been impacting. And of course, we've had lots of testimonies of the implementation of the import of this conference and the positive dimension it has shifted their businesses. And so here we are again for yet another day of the Business Development Conference. It's been about boundless opportunities in the new normal post-COVID. Is there a new normal? Are we in the post-COVID era? These issues are still issues under debate. But of course, less of a debate is the fact that we are in a new normal. Of course, we are in a society where without your face mask, as it were, in a public environment, it is seen as not right, not the right thing to do. And so conventionally, people tend to put on a face mask. That's just a clear indication that there is currently a new normal. When there was a worldwide lockdown much earlier, time last year, you would also agree with me that a lot of meetings like this, Zoom became more popular and other online meeting platforms became more popular. And of course, there are debates that these platforms have come to stay. And so even when people can meet physically, they'll always want to prefer doing that at the comfort of their offices or their homes. Of course, there is a new normal. It has also changed the business demography of the world generally. And so that's why the Young Engineers Entrepreneurship Club has thought it very wise to organize such a conference as this to empower you to be able to maximize the potentials and open your eyes to the opportunities. We are saying that there is a boundless opportunity in the new normal. And of course, there is a new normal. Post-COVID is a word that is still under debate. But of course, has COVID-19 come to stay? I don't think so. Positively, speaking on the positive note, I personally do not think so. We trust that one day it will be totally eradicated. But now that normal activities, though with a little restriction, is ongoing, there is a change in the business atmosphere. And of course, businesses that are not aligned to the new normal are suffering a lot of setback, with a lot of them going into one financial crisis or the other. Some of them are totally aground, and while a few are struggling. But those who understand the dynamics and how to scale through in this season have actually latched on to the opportunities that are bound in the new normal. Rundown of what has been happening in the last couple of weeks. But before I do that, it's important to show you the heavyweight that is about to be with us, sharing on the legal and regulatory framework for setting up a business in Nigeria. And of course, he is Franklin Gogodenye, the head counsel litigation and regulatory risk management, Nigeria LNG. I'm going to tell you more about him as the program. And so the president of the Young Engineers Entrepreneurship Club will be coming up in very few seconds from now to, of course, give us the welcome speech, opening remark, the next few seconds. But prior to that time, while we allow that to happen, it ensures just a few things that has been happening prior to this time. Yes, of course, it's still the Young Engineers Entrepreneurship Club Business Development Conference. Yeah, I can see Sir Franklin Gogodenye right here, already set to do the needful. And of course, like I said earlier, I'm going to share a few things about him before he comes on stream. But it's imperative right now that the president and founder of Young Engineers Entrepreneurship Club gives us an opening remark. It's my pleasure to invite Engineer Kingston Sylvanus to give the opening remark. Engineer Kingston, sir.
Young Engineers Entrepreneurship Club, Geek, Africa, River State University Oil and Gas Training Center. Today is an epoch-making event, and we're superlatively excited about it. River State University Oil and Gas Training Center. Today is an epoch-making event and we're superlatively excited about it. Young Engineers Entrepreneurship Club Geek Africa, River State University Oil and Gas Training Center. Today is an epoch-making event and we're superlatively excited about it.
My name is Kingston Spanos. My name is Kingston Silvanos. I serve as the president and founder of Young Engineers Entrepreneurship Club Africa. Today, the business development conference of our organization targeted at building businesses across Africa. Let me first and foremost thank the Almighty God for making today success ready. Thank our speaker in the house, team of engineers who are handling the technical aspect of this event, live audience there, and all of you out there, the participants across Africa for this particular event. Let me thank you for finding out to be here. Today is one of the days that we have set aside as an organization to organize this event because we have discovered an issue in Africa. What are the issues? The issue of unemployability, the issue of unemployment, the issue of lack of funding for businesses. As a result of these issues, the number of persons who want to be creating jobs and are looking for jobs. Those who are looking for jobs don't have the requisite to get jobs. And there are some level of concern about how to get this address. So as a organization, we decided that we will get youth across Africa, train them, prepare them, their dream jobs. And for those who want to do their own business, also prepare them on how to start business. Because it's not that easy to just enter into business. You need to know the nitty-gritty about the business you enter into. And so we've decided to continue to talk to Nigerians, to Africans, men who have made it in their respective endeavors, men who have passed through the hurdles of life and got to where they are. We feel that they have the experience, they have the wisdom, they have the knowledge to share with us so that we can tune in and their success story and make way for ourselves. So let me not waste too much of your time. I appreciate those who have been speaking for our events, especially this business conference, one to this particular one, then the one that the speaker that was speaking, our own brother, our friend, our supporter, and one of the fellows of Young Engineers Entrepreneurship Club, being behind the success behind what you are doing, Africa Leaders Club. Our speaker today is not just only a speaker, the mentor, Young Engineers Entrepreneurship Club, but it's also a fellow and the vice president of the Fellowship Council of Young Engineers International. So let me, on behalf of the entire members of the Young Engineers International Club around Africa and the live audience here, specifically thank Sir Engineer Frank Engineer for finding time out of his own very tight schedule to be a part and to educate those of us who want to venture into business and considering the legal compliances around establishing business in Nigeria in particular. And today will be sharing with us knowledge how to navigate the storms to get our business registered and so on. So many thanks, Sir Engineer Frank Engineer, for coming on board. And then to you, the audience, we have over 6,000 people that registered for this business conference across Africa. We'll be speaking to you. What's important is not you being present in this event. What's important is the attention you give to the speaker, so that at the end of the day, you will take a decision that will shape your own business, shape your own life, give your economic support. So I sincerely pray the indulgence that you pay very serious attention as our speaker will be coming on board to speak to us this week. I can tell you, a lot of people have called me at the back end from the beginning of this business conference, telling us what you have been doing to affect people. One of the stories, one of the MD CEOs of one of the popular company told me that we are doing a lot that we don't know. They want to listen to the president of Gardens City Premier Business Group, Dr. Silver Charles Paula, and we want a lot in that meeting. And every day I've only been an advantage. So today is going to be, but we prepared so much for this event for today, and a lot of people to hope for this event because of the topic of today's event. Because it's very important. A lot of people don't know how to navigate around, how to get their business registered. And they need to start partnership. You find out that a lot of issues that are there in putting A and B together in the name of partnership and giving partnership. So all of that is going to be treated by our own speaker. So let me thank you and formally welcome every one of you to on board. Thank you and thank you. Before I leave, let me just thank the CEO of Young Engineers, Dr. Noble Okela. Let me thank you for putting this together. You're a wonderful person. All the team here present. You guys are great people. So let me thank you. God bless you all.
So very much the president and founder of the Young Engineers Entrepreneurship Club, Engineer Kingston Sylvanus, for that welcome address. We want to especially thank everyone tuned in to this particular conference. And so you can hook on live to this particular conference from all the social media handles of the Young Engineers Entrepreneurship Club. It is particularly streaming live on the YouTube page of YEEC Africa and the Facebook page of YEEC Africa. If you do not have a link, or you do not have a link to share with someone, simply tell them to go to the Facebook app and type YEEC Africa. And of course, they are going to be joining the event live, as well as their YouTube app. To just type YEEC Africa, and of course they are going to join this event live. To participate and interact, just use the comment section, and all of the things that are needed would all the things that you need to know, as well as the questions that you need to ask, will be shown to you there and then. And so it is imperative that you do that. Without further ado, it is my pleasure to invite the next speaker, Sir Franklin Gogodianye, who will be speaking on legal and regulatory framework for setting up a business in Nigeria. He is the Head Counsel, Litigation and Regulatory Risk Management, Nigeria LNG Limited. I want to share a few things about the quintessential speaker that we have right here. Sir Franklin Gogodenye, aka Voodoo Man, is a seasonal legal practitioner with 27 years post-call experience, currently engaged in legal practice as an in-house counsel. He obtained his first school leaving certificate from State School E. Sangana Street, State School 3 rather, Sangana Street, Port Harcourt, River State, Nigeria, and later proceeded to Stella Maris College, also in Port Harcourt, where he obtained his West African School certificate. He later proceeded to the River State University in Polu, Port Harcourt, where he obtained his law degree in 1994. He finally attended the Nigerian Law School in Lagos, Nigeria, and was eventually called to the Nigerian bar in 1995 as a solicitor and advocate of the Supreme Court of Nigeria. Sir Denye continued to attend various professional and developmental programs and trainings across the globe with corresponding certifications. He is a fellow of the Institute of Management Consultants, a certified management consultant, and so much more. He is also a member of the Nigerian Bar Association, International Bar Association, Rotary International, and a host of other associations and groups. His career as a lawyer has taken him through top Nigerian law firms where he was engaged in full legal practice. Olisa Abakoba, SAN, and Associates, Lagos, Okocha and Okocha, Manuchim Chambers, Port Harcourt, and Udo Udoma and Bello Osage, Lagos, Port Harcourt. He left full legal practice in 2003 to join Globalcom Limited as a pioneer regional head legal and subsequently joined Nigeria LNG Limited in 2004, where he is currently deployed in the legal division as head counsel, litigation and regulatory risk management. Sadien is happily married to his charming wife, Lady Haggai, and blessed with 3 children, Ataine, Minma Haggai, and TJ. Sadien is a Knight of St. Christopher in the Anglican Communion of the Church of Nigeria, a strict disciplinarian and an advocate of creating future that one seeks and not wait for future's outcome. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure once again and privilege to introduce to you Sir Franklin Denye.
Thank you. Thank you so very much, Noble, and good afternoon, everybody. I can get a call back. If you're not speaking, can you please mute? Okay, thank you. It's indeed a pleasure having me here, and I must especially thank the President Kingston for conferring me with the title of engineer. It sounded so cool. Okay, and I hope I will not be arrested, but if I'm a fellow of this, I guess I can jolly well be, I can as well be an engineer. So, well, it's good what I see and hear about what is going on. The capacity building of our youths remain very cardinal in the things that we do if we are trying to build a robust and just society, because you really need to develop the leaders of tomorrow before you can be sure of having a secure future. So the training exercises, I think they are quite good and ought to be commended. So I must say kudos to Geek Africa for making this this possible. Okay, so can you put up my slide, please? So we'll be going into my presentation, and is the slide up? I can see it. Okay, so
it's going to be up in a few seconds.
Okay, thank you. So while we are waiting for that to come up, I I want to say that, well, when I was told about this program, I was informed there are a lot of youths that may require information on setting up businesses. Okay, so this has been tailor-made for them, and you're not likely going to find some of the very detailed things that you would ordinarily find, because I'm basically dealing with this as an introduction to people who want to set up businesses. Okay, so well, the theme of the ongoing conference is quite apt. Okay, we are talking about boundless opportunities in the new normal post-COVID. There are situations that are not very okay with everyone, but somehow people continue to thrive in their businesses. A lot have fallen by the wayside, so maybe it's an indication that we could actually go into business nonetheless, irrespective of what is going on, and see what we can make out of it. So if you can just go to the next slide, let's have a look at let's have an overview of what we'll be talking about. If you can can you go to presentation mode? Okay, so well, today we are going to be looking, well, we first of all go into the introduction and basically what this is all about. And then we look at the business drivers, okay? What are those things that you have to consider before you go into business? You've probably heard this somewhere else, but we're still going to talk through it here to create some background to what we are going to be addressing. And then we are going to be looking at the types of businesses, and then we look at the business control elements, which could be internal or external. And then there'll be special mention for CAMA 2020, okay, as a business enabler. There are a lot of things in CAMA 2020 that are designed to support new businesses and to make business less complicated. And then we go to the conclusion. The questions and answers would follow thereafter, and I'll try my best to answer all your questions. But if there's any that remains unanswered, I think we could pack that and then get back to the person who poses that question in due course. I'm sure the YEC Secretariat will be able to arrange that. Just for clarification, I'm here in my personal capacity, and every view I express here, everything I say, are entirely mine. I'm not speaking on behalf of anyone, especially my employers. Okay, so my designation has been stated just for the purpose of putting whatever thing I'm doing here in proper perspective, but my views remain mine, and I hope you will understand that. So thank you very much. Let's go to the next slide. Okay. Well, going into the introduction, as I've stated earlier, the adverse impact of the COVID-19 pandemic continues to reverberate across the globe, and that includes Nigeria, with adverse impact on businesses. And in fact, some businesses have actually collapsed completely, okay? And it shows to what extent that people have undergone extensive challenges, okay, in the course of the pandemic. Okay, so it's not something that is new to us. We've been having this challenge for about a year now. Personally, I've been working from home since March last year. So it's almost 1 year since I haven't been to my office, okay? And I'm sure that's the same with a lot of people. I'm fortunate to be in a place where business can still go on in spite of having to work from home, but a lot of businesses are not so structured. So they have challenges. But some people have learned the ropes very fast, and they have adjusted to the new normal, and they have been able to navigate the system and are doing very well in their businesses. So while some are falling by the wayside, others are actually thriving, which is a bit of an irony. Indeed, according to Forbes, the world's billionaires have gotten 1.9 trillion richer in 2020. Do you know what that means? It means that while a lot of people are complaining and whining for good reason, but while they are doing that, some people are busy making money. So it means that you could actually adjust to the situation in which you find yourself and venture into your business. I'm not sure the slide is up, so please you can put it up again so the audience can follow what I'm saying. Okay. Now, Nigeria is not left out in the good news coming out of the pandemic, as Nigeria's vast potential as a business hub still subsists. We have heard good stories coming from people. Just recently, there's a story trending about people who have made so much, even to a ridiculous extent. I'm not going into that, but I know a lot of us will know what we are talking about. So, but that's not to say there aren't success stories that we can all relate to. Indeed, Nigeria now ranks 131 out of 190 in the World Bank's 2020 Doing Business Index. It means that in the ranking of countries where you could do business easily, Nigeria is currently number 131 out of 190. You may say, well, that's not a very good figure, but well, we have risen 15 notches from the 2019 ranking of 146. So things are actually getting better in terms of the structure being set by government to promote businesses and how businesses are being conducted. United Capital PLC, an investment banking group, projects that Nigeria's GDP growth will rebound by 1.7% to 2.0% in 2021. And that it will be buoyed by the increased economic activity and some improvements in the oil market. Now, I know a lot of us here are not in the oil market because this is a largely young audience. Well, I know there are, of course, some established, a lot of established people are equally in this audience, but the main target is the young population. Okay, but it means that the increased economic activity that has been mentioned is one area where you can find yourself. So you can be part of that equation that will make the growth of Nigeria to become attainable. Okay, and there is sufficient incentive, therefore, to set up businesses in Nigeria, and knowledge of the legal and regulatory framework surrounding that activity remains very key to achieving the needed success in that sector. Next slide, please. Now, the next slide talks about the business drivers. And well, I know you can never have an exhaustive list of what to consider before starting up a business, but I've picked this, the 5 you see here. These are basically the ones that I see. You see some people, they say they didn't even have any consideration, they just started. But everybody's story cannot be like that. But on the average, a lot of people have to first of all plan before they go into business. So what are the drivers for business setup? Okay, what are those things that you have to consider before you even determine whether you're fit to go into business? Because a lot of things depends on your preparedness. First, you have to identify the skill that you have, and not just the skill, the passion also, because you find out that a lot of people are skilled in things that they don't enjoy doing, okay, which in itself is a problem. So your skill must be aligned with your passion, okay, because it is your passion that gives you the drive. When you meet challenges, you want to surmount it. And it is when you have this skill that you know you're ready for business. And when I'm talking about the skill, I'm talking about your interpersonal skills, then your knowledge of management. How can you manage people? How can you convince people? What are your interactive competence capabilities like? Okay, so are you the kind of person that can actually start a business? Now, when you tick that box, you move another step. You now consider the market. What market are you targeting? There is market everywhere, but you need to look at the market that meets with your aspirations. So any market that doesn't meet your aspirations is not worth it. So what is the competition like? A typical case is what we are seeing here today. I noticed a lot of difficulty in connection, network connection, which means the internet or the Wi-Fi, the internet service providers, you may think it's saturated, but it's not, because we are not really getting optimal service. So that's an opportunity for you. So you need to be able to identify some of these things and see how you can position yourself to go into that market and make a difference. And where the market is very competitive, what is your selling point? How would you outdo the other person to stay relevant in business? Now, when you tick this box, you go to the next one. What is the financial plan? How are you arranging your funding? Are you taking a loan? Do you have savings, or you want people to work with you? No, stay on that slide. I'm not yet done. You know, so you have to determine that. Some people have 10 million naira and then they throw in 10 million naira to invest, hoping maybe that profits will come in immediately after the investment. But no, that's not going to happen. Okay, so do you have capital to run that business for the first 6 months to 1 year when you may not have any income? So you need to check that box. And then you move on to risks. What are the risks in your sector? So if you're someone that is afraid of excessive regulation by the government, then maybe the oil and gas industry will not be for you, because that sector is overregulated. And you actually have conflicting regulations in that space. So if you cannot stand that heat, you may need to consider another place. But then the returns in that sector is very high. So you have to do proper balancing of that and decide where you want to be. And then the structure and the vehicle, that's the last point. That is the kind of business structure you want to set up. Is it a business name? Is it a limited liability company? You need to take a decision on that. Some people start from structure. It can't work that way. So you register about 5 companies and then you are described as the owner of businesses. No, you're not the owner of any business. You are just the owner of registered companies, because structure is not necessarily business. It is the business that rather defines the structure. Okay, so when you accept, you start with the preceding actions. You can't really say you're ready for startup. So you must tick all these boxes before you actually register the business. So when you have checked all of these boxes, then you can now move on to activate the business by way of registration. Next slide, please. Now, business activation is achieved via registration. Okay, and I'm saying this only in the context of formal businesses. Now, I'm not saying the informal sector is not important. As a matter of fact, the informal sector remains very critical, because the informal sector is said to contribute 50% of the nation's GDP. And you may ask, what do I mean by informal businesses? Informal businesses are those unregistered and informally owned businesses with informal employees. They often fly below the radar. They are not seen by the government, or the government doesn't even pay attention to them. So you're talking about the woman in the market selling tomatoes, you're talking about the bricklayer, you're talking about the carpenter, you're talking about the recharge card seller. In Africa, that's a very wide space. But we are unable to speak very well on them because they are not regulated, they are not formal, you don't see them, they're under the radar. That's why we are going to be limiting our discussion to only the formal businesses, because those are the ones that we see, and they are the ones that are subjected to legal and regulatory requirements, which will align with the subject of our discourse. So business in the formal sector is run through registered entities, which could be companies, enterprises, or associations. Registered businesses also sometimes register sub-entities, otherwise known as special purpose vehicles or special purpose entities to meet very special needs. So sometimes you will find that company A has a subsidiary. That's what they actually call a subsidiary, because they need it to address a special need. So businesses could actually also register businesses. So for those who are keen on registering businesses but they don't know how to go about it, if you market yourself properly, then an existing business could set up a unit for you to manage, and it all still works for you. Now, the primary law regulating the registration of business entities in Nigeria is the Companies and Allied Matters Act 2020, while the Corporate Affairs Commission is the primary regulator. Now, what is the effect of registration? Now, registration, the business becomes a distinct entity. So because people ask, why do I have to register? You register because you want to be separate from your business. You don't want to be the same as your business. That way, you could actually limit your liabilities. Not all businesses give you that flavor, but most businesses that operate in the formal sector can actually insulate the owner from any liability that comes from the business activities. And registration also serves to create an ownership interest in a business, an interest created via different approaches. Now, what do I mean by this? You could actually do a fresh registration, a brand new company, and your interest will be created in that company. There's another way you can create your interest in a company. You could buy the shelf companies. Now, by shelf companies, I mean those companies that are just registered by people in that line of business. They register them and just literally place them on the shelf, waiting for someone who will show up to buy them. Now, what it does is this. Where you want a business, you don't have to go through the hog of registration. You can just simply buy one of those. And one of the benefits is that sometimes you want to be engaged in a business that requires companies that are like 1 year old, 2 years old. But if you register today, you're not going to meet that threshold. So you could buy because some of those shelf companies could be as old as 3, 4, 5 years. And you could achieve that purpose. So you could acquire an interest in such companies. When you buy them, then the shareholding is changed, the directors are changed. You can even change the name with time. So it actually suits your purpose in the short term and also in the long term. And then for existing companies, if you have enough money, you could actually acquire some interest in them. So you could take your maybe small or big business and then you merge it with another business to acquire some interest in them. Or you could outrightly acquire an existing business. Under the COVID, a lot of businesses were acquired, businesses that were struggling. So the big businesses bought them over, and that way they could acquire interest in such businesses. Let's move to the next slide, please. So now, Section 21 of CAMA stipulates the kind of companies that can be registered in Nigeria. Okay, and now these companies are as shown in the table there. So you have companies limited by shares, companies limited by guarantee, and then the unlimited companies. I'll take them one after the other. Now, a company limited by shares is one in which the liability of members is limited to the amount, if any, unpaid on the shares respectively held by them. Let me explain this further. You could set up a business with 100,000 shares. And out of that 100,000 shares, maybe your own allotment as a member is 10,000. But you don't pay for 10,000 shares. Maybe you pay only for 5,000 shares. Now, if that company runs into difficulty, your liability will be limited to the balance 5,000 you haven't paid for. So when you are able to discharge that balance 5,000, it means you don't have any further liability to that company. That way, you're adequately insulated. I don't know if that is clear. So to the extent that you are not owing or you have fully paid up your shares, if that company runs into difficulty, you actually do not have any liability. The liability is that of the company, it's not that of the shareholder. But there are exceptions. And the exception would be where maybe you deliberately commit a crime or use a company for fraud, where the veil of incorporation could be lifted. And that means they will actually lift that curtain to see those behind the business. And then you'll be personally liable, even though it is a limited liability company. So that means we should always play by the books. Otherwise, we run into difficulties. Now, this is the most common form of company in Nigeria. So most companies that you find are actually companies limited by shares. Now, can you still hear me? Okay. Now, you also have another class of companies, that's the company limited by guarantee. Now, the company limited by guarantee is one in which the liability of members who are known as guarantors is limited to such amount as the members respectively undertake to contribute to the assets of the company in the event of it being wound up. So on registration of a company limited by guarantee, each member undertakes to contribute a certain amount in the event the company runs into difficulty. Now, that amount you have committed to contribute will not crystallize until when that company is actually in difficulty. Then you will be called upon to make good your commitment. The company limited by guarantee has no share capital. It's non-for-profit, it's a non-profit making company, and because of that, it enjoys tax exemption. Okay, so because you're not expected to make profits, you're not required to pay tax. Although we find situations where people use such companies to for profit, but it is an offense for which you could actually go to jail. Now, this is the type of company that requires the consent of the Attorney General of the Federation for registration. But if he fails to give the consent within a certain window, you could then advertise in 3 newspapers and call for objections to that registration. Now, if there is no objection, then the company will be registered. And these companies, types of companies, are set up to promote commerce, art, science, religion, sports, culture, education, research, charity, or other similar objects. I must emphasize, companies limited by guarantee are non-profit in nature. You know them by the suffix attached to their names. After you write the name, you have LTD/GT, that's company limited by guarantee. And then you have the unlimited company, in which members' financial liability in the event of it being wound up is unlimited. Okay, so if you're a member of that company and the company runs into difficulty, they are going to take your bed sheet, take your pillow, take your mattress to fulfill, to discharge the debt of that company. Members of the company will be required to do all that is required to meet the obligations of the company. Now, certain things cut across all of these companies, and if you are incorporating any of these companies, these are the things you need to consider. One, you need to consider the nature of the company. Now, any of these companies could be either private or public. So you need to make a determination whether the company will be public or private. I will come to that distinction in the next slide. And you also need to agree on the name or identify the name you want to use. And for starters, there'll be an availability check on that name. And that is supposed to take 24 hours. But I can't tell you that happens in practice. Okay, but it's actually supposed to be 24 hours. And if that name is available, it is reserved for 60 days. For those 60 days, no one else can use that name. But after 60 days, any other person can use that name. And you need to state your objects. CAMA 2020 actually now says that since a company has the character of a natural person, you can't really limit it should be able to do anything. But it allows for the members of the company to limit the company from carrying out certain objects, which is allowed. I mean, you could say that you do not want your company to go into transport business because maybe you think it is too capital intensive. So you could actually agree on that. And before registration, you need to actually stipulate this. And then you have to agree on the registered office address, and then the share capital. Every company has a share capital, and under CAMA 2020, you have to issue all of the capital. Before now, you could, if for instance, you register a company with 100,000 shares, you could only issue, you may issue 50%, 60%, or even 30%. Under CAMA 2020, you are required to issue all your shares. And for existing companies, you have up till the 30th day of June to ensure that all your shares are issued. Otherwise, you commit an offense. And then choice of directors, before you now make a statement of compliance, which is a new innovation introduced by CAMA 2020. Before now, it is a lawyer that will do it, but now you don't have to engage a lawyer to do that. You could save money actually issuing that statement on your own, or authorizing any of your agents to do that on your behalf. Next slide, please. Okay, I did mention that the classes of companies that I spoke about in the previous slide could either be private or public. And okay, could either be private or public. And that's as defined under section 21(2) of CAMA. Okay, so the private companies are those companies that are described as private in their memorandum of association, and they have minimum share capital of 100,000. So you cannot register a private company with less than 100,000 naira share capital. And you cannot invite members of the public to subscribe to the shares, but you can invite your friend to come and subscribe. You can invite your family member to subscribe, but you can't go on social media or go to the newspaper to say, okay, shares are available, come and take it. And the membership of the company is limited to 50%. So if you have a private company, you cannot have more than 50 shareholders. But I need to mention, okay, I'll come back to the issue of membership. Now, conversely, a public company is one that is not a private company and is described as a public company in its memorandum of association. So it is very easy to make that distinction. Any company that is not private is a public company, and of course, the memorandum of association will state that. The minimum share capital for a public company is 2 million, unlike private company, which is 100,000. So if you decide to register a public company, then it means you must be ready to shoulder more responsibilities, looking at 2 million naira minimum. And then you could invite the public to subscribe to your shares, and there's no limit to the number of members. Any number is okay. Even if you want to have 1 million shareholders, that's fine, okay? And you're not running afoul of any law. Now, coming back to the issue of membership. Now, in computing the number of members for a private company, recall, we have said the maximum is 50 persons. But in computing the number of members, the number of persons in a company, that's the members, the joint shareholders will be reckoned as one. Let me explain what I mean by that. It means that if 10 people decide to come together to buy shares, they come together to buy shares jointly, those 10 persons will count as one. So the existing company has 10 shareholders, for instance. If those 10 people decide to buy shares, you do not have 10 additional members. You have one, so that's just 11. Your new number will now be 11. So the joint ownership will count as one. And then there are instances where companies actually offer shares to their staff. Some companies do that, very profitable companies. It's okay, we want to offer you some shares. That's also a way to ensure that the staff members are committed to the organization. Now, those staff members are not reckoned in the computation of members. So if a company has 20 shareholders, for instance, and offers 100 shares to its staff, staff members, or 100 of his staff members take shares. Now, the number of members you have in that company will not be 120. They will not even be counted. And that remains the situation even after those staff members leave the company, if they are still retaining the shares. So staff members do not count when you're checking the number of shareholders. Otherwise, a lot of the companies you know as private companies would no longer be private companies because they have exceeded the threshold of persons in a private company. Now, the law also specifies the capacity of members. That's people who could be shareholders in a company. And it says that an individual shall not join the formation of a company if he's less than 18 years of age. There's another catch there. Someone could be less than 18 years, but still be made, he could still be a shareholder, provided you have at least 2 other persons that cross that threshold. So if you have 2 other persons that are above 18 years, it means someone below 18 years can actually be a shareholder. That is how you can find a man and his wife can form a company with their little children that can't even read and write as shareholders. That is how it happens. And they haven't broken any law. But you cannot form a company with just minors, people under 18 years. That will not work. It will be illegal. And in fact, if the CAC is aware, they will not register them. And then the member must be a person of sound mind. So a person of unsound mind cannot be a member of a company. And when I say unsound mind, I don't mean when they say, that's a madman. No, that's not what I'm talking about. The person must be adjudged unsound by a court in any jurisdiction, not just Nigeria. So a court in Nigeria could say, okay, this man is of unsound mind, or a court in the UK, or a court in any jurisdiction. But it's not just to say, I know that guy is a madman, I saw him eating in a dustbin. That's not the requirement. And again, if you've been declared bankrupt, you can't be a member of a company. Some people do that when they are owing money, they go to court and seek a declaration that they are bankrupt. Now, when you do that, you need to know that you can no longer participate in the formation of a company. And lastly, every person disqualified under CAMA from being a director of a company cannot be a shareholder in the company. Next slide, please. Are we still projecting? I can't see. Okay, well, the next class of businesses, you have the enterprise and association. And then for enterprises, you have business names, which we also refer to as sole proprietorship. Okay, and that's a situation where you find the owner trading under a particular name and style. Okay, so it's the most common form of enterprise, where someone can just decide not to use his own personal name, but he could answer any name. But you're not distinct from the business. So the liabilities of the business are your liabilities, and you're responsible for all the debts of that business. It's not as regulated as the companies, so a lot of people find it convenient. And a lot of the shops you find maybe at Ikoku, those people selling spare parts, those electrical shops, those roadside shops selling maybe electric bulb and all of that. A lot of them are actually business names. They are very non-complicated, and even their tax matters are handled with the state government, not FIROS. They are very easy to set up, and you don't have any stress running those kinds of businesses. Then you have limited partnership, which is like a glorified business name. I'm not using this in any derogatory sense, please. But the difference is that this involves more than one person. So you have 2 persons, but maximum 20 persons. okay? But when it comes to law firms and accounting firms, the number could exceed 20. Now, you don't have to worry about that because CAMA has come to address the situation where some people may have what they call bad belly for lawyers and accountants. But normally, for limited partnership, the membership cannot be more than 20. And it doesn't generally assume a separate legal entity from its members who remain liable for its debts and obligations, except for limited partners who are not responsible for the acts of the general partners. So as a minimum, one general partner is required to have unlimited liability for all the debts and obligations of the partnership. The third kind of enterprise is limited liability partnership. That's a new, that has just been newly introduced by CAMA 2020, and it's an arrangement between at least two persons, quite distinct from the said partners to carry out business for profit. You remember I said, don't worry about it, don't have bad belly. Now, if you want to have more than two partners, as the lawyers and the accountants have been enjoying, then you could actually have a limited liability partnership where the number is limitless. You could have 1 million partners and carry on your business. Any change in partners will not affect its existence, rights, or abilities. It has perpetual succession. Okay, now there are very large indications, there are indications that this will be very well embraced by a lot of people who do not want to go the company route, especially again, the law firms, accountants, the medical doctors. A lot of people will play in this space as it affords them protection, unlike the limited partnership that that has been in existence for quite some time now. And then you have the third kind, which is basically an association, and it's the incorporated trustees, and it's actually a not-for-profit arrangement where at least two trustees appointed by persons with common interest come together for purposes of executing religious, educational, literary, scientific, social development, cultural, sporting, or charitable purposes. It is registered as a body corporate with perpetual succession, and it can own assets, sue, and be sued. Again, this is not intended for profit, but in reality, it doesn't appear people are observing that. And quite recently, there has been a lot of discussions on the social media on some of the provisions that have been brought in to check the incorporated trustees. Of course, I don't want to go into that since that seems to be a controversial topic. But it appears a lot of people are not using incorporated trustees for the purpose that the law intends them to use it. So the government is trying to control that space, which I think is fine. But well, that's my personal interest. Let's move over to the next slide, please. Now, having seen the types of businesses, we now have to look at business control and operations, okay? Because we are actually looking at the legal and regulatory requirements for setting up a business. And it's not only about formation, there are certain rules, regulations, obligations that actually guides the conduct of a business, and of course, the shareholders or persons promoting the business. So businesses are typically subjected to legal, regulatory, and contractual controls. And these could be either internal or external and could actually be both ways. Now, I've listed out just a few. The list on either side is by no means exhaustive, but well, this is just introductory. Okay, so if we were dealing with a different audience, maybe we would have gone much deeper. But there are certain documents you cannot run away from, especially if you're forming a business with persons who are not your family members. But sometimes, even amongst family members, you're required to have like the shareholders agreement. Now, because there's no shareholders agreement, you find out today people set up business and then tomorrow they are no longer in the business. You ask them what happened and they say the other guy was messing up. That's because the relationship has not been clearly defined. Now, I don't know how many persons that are in this audience now that would actually say they have really signed documents, okay, to go into businesses with people. And that is where the problem comes from. So as young entrepreneurs, I would insist and say that before you go into business, ensure that the rights and the obligations of every party are clearly defined. And you could have that in a shareholders agreement. So the shareholders agreement will, for instance, determine the role of each party. So if you're supposed to be the MD or you're supposed to produce the MD, then it needs to be stated. If you're supposed to be the GM finance or you're supposed to produce the GM finance, that needs to be stated. So you have to share the role. You don't set up a company and then two friends or two brothers start jostling who will be MD. That should have been agreed well in advance, because you lose your goodwill when you begin to fight. And you may have used the name you have been saving right from your childhood to register the company, and then you leave it and walk away because you're quarreling. So you need to clearly define it. What about the jobs that will be created? How would the placements be done? Who approves? Is it the board? Is it the shareholders? Is there a committee that will screen the people going into the jobs to ensure that there's quality? Because it's not someone just calling his friend, his secondary school or his primary school's classmate who needs a job. Please, I need you to come and do this job. No, the business will fail. How do you fund the business? What are the percentages? How much percentage am I bringing? And then the man that is not bringing a percentage, does it mean he's a non-entity? No. How do you value his intellectual input? How do you value his networking abilities? All of that needs to be determined. And then you create the delegated financial authorities. What can the board approve? What should the shareholders approve? How much money? How much money will the management approve? You set those controls and you create the scope. What businesses can we go into? What should we avoid? So many things to be agreed upon. And you need the services of experts to help you define that. And except you do that, if you go into the business, you're going to have friction, because two people can never always agree on the same thing. But if they are defined, whether or not you like it, you're stuck with it, except you amend the agreement. And then you have the articles of association. The articles of association of an organization, interestingly, a lot of people are not aware. You just ask someone to incorporate a company for you, and then they do the memo, they do the articles with zero input. But the articles are your internal constitutive documents. They form part of your internal constitutive documents. So they control the company. They also define roles, set approval processes, business scope, DFAs, decision-making. So you don't just ask a lawyer or an accountant, anyone to just write something for me. No, you have to agree. It has to align with your shareholders agreement. Otherwise, you're still going to have conflict. There's no point putting your scarce resources into a business and jettisoning it and running away because you have problems with someone. Then the memo. Right now, a company can do whatever it pleases, but you can bring in restrictions. You can say, okay, no, this business I'm involved in, we are not going into the financial market. State it in the memo. Restrict it. Don't quarrel with anybody. Define it. Okay, so and then you also need to know the contractual obligation. Sometimes you set up a business because someone has come with an idea and you have signed agreements with that person that you owe the person X amount, you owe the person certain obligations. Those contracts are key. So sometimes lenders give you money and they say you cannot do any business that exceeds 500 million naira in the next 5 years. Those are obligations. You cannot breach them, because when you breach them, you breach the lending provisions. Okay, so you need to take all of this into account. And any agreement you reach with anyone concerning your business, you need to document it. Now, on the external front, that's slightly different, because that is more about laws, regulations, and then your obligations with third parties too. Okay, for instance, you're setting up a business that involves expatriates. Then you must know about the Nigeria Investment Promotion Commission Act. Now, that act sets up the Nigeria Investment Promotion Commission, and that is the agency that promotes and encourages foreign investments in Nigeria. So interface is required towards alien participation in any business, and that is the law that allows foreigners to own 100% shares in companies. Okay, so you need to know what the law says, because there are a lot of controls. What about the Finance Act? It could also help your planning. Finance Act 2019 was also recently passed, and it exempts small companies as defined by CETA, that is companies earning gross turnover of 25 million or less, from payment of 2% education tax. So it could also help your planning. So you may be laboring under the impression that if we set up this company, our monthly exposure is about 10 million because you're factoring in education tax. But if your turnover is not above that threshold, it means that is savings for you. So sometimes you understand the law not because you don't want to run afoul of it, but because it gives you incentives that could help you actually develop your business faster. Trust me, we are not exactly in a society where if you are doing something wrong that someone is benefiting from, that person is not going to tell you that what you're doing is wrong. The person is going to tell you to continue doing what you're doing as long as it brings money into his pocket. So we need to understand some of these things as a way of guiding us as we set up businesses. Then if you look at CAMA, well, that's it covers all businesses. And then the NOGIC Act, okay, that's key because it talks about, it covers people in the oil sector. And then the Taxes and Levies Act, you need to know your exposure. So when you're doing your financial plan, you need to know what you are exposed to. Otherwise, you have 10 million naira for the business, and you think 10 million can carry you for 1 year, but in the middle, just in the middle of the road, you discover after 3 months you've depleted your resources, and that's not good at all. So let's move on to the next slide. We cannot do justice to this presentation without talking more on CAMA 2020. And CAMA 2020 deserves a special mention because of what is perceived as incentive for business startups. And that's very key for this audience. Okay. Now, before this time, before CAMA 2020, a single individual cannot set up a company. So the minimum number of persons that you require to set up a company is 2. So you have 2 members minimum. CAMA has come in to say only 1 person can set up a company. And that is very good, because a guy wants to set up a company, but he doesn't know whom to set it up with. He ends up with a business name, and that doesn't work for him. Most companies you go to for business will say, no, we only deal with limited liability companies. Even where they deal with the business names, then you'll be operating at a very low level. And the kind of, I watched the video that was played before I came on, and I saw people with very bright future, the way they were talking, the benefits they were getting from the training and all of that. You don't want to be a small player. So you start big, you register a big company. Sometimes too, you don't want to share your ideas with someone. So teaming with that person to set up a business becomes a problem. But now you can go on your own and register a business and you're good. Now that's a good innovation under CAMA 2020. Again, CAMA 2020 has introduced limited liability partnerships. Before now, you set up a partnership. As I said, partnership is just like glorified business name. So, well, it's a partnership, but you're still liable. I don't want that. If, for instance, you have labored to buy a car, to build a house, and then you're trying to set up something for your children that are coming, you don't want someone to come and carry them because the business, you ran into business difficulties. You want to try to insulate yourself. Okay, so now you have limited liability partnerships. For those that don't want to go straight into limited liability companies, the limited liability partnerships are less formal, but it gives you that insulation that a limited liability company affords. Again, there has been increase in the small company qualification threshold. Now, a small company is a company that has annual turnover of less than 120 million and net asset value of less than 60 million. Now, that is significant because before now, a small company is a company which annual turnover is less than 2 million. So you discover that there is actually no small company in Nigeria. And why is this important? There are incentives for small companies. Now, look at even under the COVID relief package. A lot of people that would have benefited, they couldn't benefit because they were regarded as big companies, whereas they're actually small companies. So all that has changed. So if your annual turnover is less than 120, it means you're a small company and you could key into some of these incentives that abound in Nigeria. You need expert advice to locate all of them. And you no longer require company secretary and auditors if you are a small company. So you're struggling to survive as a business, but you're required to have a company secretary, and then you have to invite auditors to come and be looking at your books, to be doing this, to be doing that, and you're paying money. You don't even have money to pay salaries, but you're paying the lawyer, you're paying the auditors. I'm not saying paying lawyers and auditors, I'm not saying that is bad, but what I'm saying is for a small business, that may not necessarily be priority, okay? Especially if you have the skill set to do some of the things that these professionals will do for you. Okay, I'm not saying that is normally the case, but sometimes you actually have engineers that are chartered accountants, for instance. Okay, but you're just engaging someone else to do that work for you. So CAMA 2020 has addressed that. Now, you, as a small company, you are not required to hold AGMs. Or if you are running a company with one shareholder, then AGMs becomes unnecessary. You may think, what's the big deal with AGM? Okay, but virtual meetings may have made that to become easy, but you actually spend a lot of money holding AGMs because you have to pay some people money to attend that meeting. You have to hire the venue because you don't necessarily have to do it in the office, and you have to gather people. So it costs a lot of money sometimes to have AGMs, but as a small company, you're not required to do that. You could also have electronic general meetings and board meetings. Now, CAMA originally talked about only electronic general meetings, and there was a gap because CAMA 2020 said absolutely nothing about board meetings, but under CAMA Regulation 2021, the board meetings have been included. So you could actually have your general meetings and board meetings the way we are having this conference. So the only cost for hosting those meetings would be the cost for the internet service provider. Okay, so that makes life easier for a lot of people. And then there's also recognition of electronic signature for documentation, for document authentication. Okay, so you don't have to pay some lawyer to travel to Abuja to file papers for you, or you maybe use DHL to send documents to someone in Abuja for filing. You could do that online. Electronic signature is sufficient. That saves you money. Likewise, electronic filings at CAC. So no need running around CAC, okay? You could do all of that electronically. Then unrestricted business objects. Before now, you could find, some people have different, up to 4 or 5 different companies because they have to register each line of business they are going into. They have to register one business for that. And that's total waste of money. When you can actually consolidate all your activities, you just create divisions and employ people to run the various arms. Okay, so now there is no restriction on the objects. So it means you can set up a company that can go into airline business, that can go into road transportation business, that can go into marine business. You don't have to incorporate companies all over the place and waste money. So now there are so many companies registered in Nigeria. Now CAC doesn't know what to do with them. I just saw a notification this morning that they're asking people to come and validate their companies, otherwise they will scratch them from the register. I don't know what that means, but it's probably because they're overwhelmed and they want to take out these companies. So now you could have one company doing everything you want to do. And I think that is good for people starting their businesses. For companies limited by guarantee, recall you require the consent of the Attorney General to set up these companies. Now, under CAMA 2020, the Attorney General is required to give his consent within a set time frame. If he doesn't, you don't have to beg him, you don't have to travel to Abuja, you don't have to tip anybody to carry the file to the AG. In fact, you will pray and wait for him not to do anything. After that time frame, you simply advertise in the papers, calling for objections. People typically don't object, it's just routine. And once you do that, you can register your company. So it's now less complicated to register a company limited by guarantee. And then statement of compliance by an applicant/agent. Now, lawyers don't like this. As a lawyer, I can't pretend I like this. Lawyers used to make money from this because they are the only ones that will sign that you have complied with the provisions of CAMA. But CAMA 2020 has changed that. You, the applicant, the owner of the business, you can actually make that statement yourself to say that you have complied, and that's good. And finally, not all, I just lifted some of the benefits I see, but CAMA has so many sections, okay? Now you have discretionary use of common seal. I recall on one occasion I was traveling with a friend, and we got to the airport, and then they kept pushing his bag back and forth because he had up to 7 seals in his bag. Now, why are you carrying 7 seals? Well, because he's a director of several companies and he needed the seals in case he needed to seal something. So you're just carrying seals all over the place, even when you may not need them. Okay, so right now, CAMA 2020 says that you can dispense with the use of seals. So if you don't need to put a seal on a document, you don't need it. I know those things are metallic. You just carry them around the whole place, just weighing and tearing your bag. Now that has stopped. The printers are not going to be happy about that. I think they charge 10,000 naira for a seal. Well, now that income is gone from that end. But for the business person, you're no longer carrying seals all over the place. And I think that is good news for business people. Next slide, please. So in concluding my presentation, I just want to say that business opportunities continue to abound in Nigeria in spite of the adverse effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. Okay, I started this presentation by saying that, you may recall, 1.9 trillion has been added to the portfolio of billionaires, which means people are making money. And some people here are making purchases in the pandemic that the average Nigerian cannot make, even in the midst of plenty. But it means people are still surviving. And I also did mention that some businesses that went under were purchased by existing businesses. So some people have gotten over it and they are taking benefit of the opportunities that they have now seen with the COVID pandemic. So, but the seeming scarcity of resources occasioned by the pandemic, however, calls for diligence in investment undertakings to ensure value preservation, which could otherwise be eroded on account of poor appreciation by investors of legal and regulatory requirements in the business sector. So, well, it doesn't matter how you look at it. If you're not careful, you could actually lose all your money. Don't forget, there are some people that were doing very well and they thought they could acquire some businesses and actually try to acquire them and then lost out. Okay, so today they are broke. Today they are broke. Were they diligent? Maybe not. Did they take benefit of expert advice? Your guess is as good as mine, but I will say not likely. So expert advice therefore remains relevant for all investors who wish to make the best out of their investments towards achieving requisite business excellence, sustainability, and growth. So I will end on this note. What I have done is not in any way, I have not tried in any way to make anybody a business expert. I have not tried in any way to tell anyone the full scope or extent of legal requirements with regard to business registration. But I've tried to provide little insight into the opportunities that abound in that space when you take the further step of maybe getting expert professional advice on it. And well, you may have to pay someone money for that, but that money you're paying, take it as part of the business. That's part of the investment. And if you have that mindset, you know it is money well spent. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much, Sir Dianye. That's, I'll call that rather a quintessential presentation. And I mean, you were talking about an expert advice and all. That got me smiling because I'm wondering what else can be more exhaustive than what you have just done. Thank you so very much. We have a number of questions here for you, and we're hoping you will help answer these questions from. So I'll be sharing them right now. Okay, right on your screen.
But I can't see any question. Huh? Okay, well, I've seen that. What business structure should I choose in view of the legal encumbrances and funding challenges in Nigeria? Well, as I've said, the encumbrances, well, you may see them as such. But to me, there's no problem that is unsurmountable. Okay, so some of the very huge challenges that you see, by the time you get the requisite resource that can deal with them, you discover that they are not that big mountain that you see after all. Okay, now the business structure that you choose is dependent on what you want to do. So if, for instance, you just want to sell pure water, I would suggest you register a business name because that's very uncomplicated. But if you want to sell the same pure water at a very large scale, you could consider maybe partnership or a limited liability company. But, you know, the choice is yours. I started this presentation by saying that you have to identify what you want, your vision, and that the structure or vehicle that you choose will be dependent on what is operating on your mind under guidance of the relevant expert, just as we are having this discussion now. So I don't have the benefit of knowing, I don't have the benefit of knowledge regarding the kind of business you have in mind, but if assuming we are having a one-on-one discussion, I may be in a better position to say, okay, I think you should do this, I think you should do that. In the same vein, if you want to set up an airline business, I think you cannot be doing business center, business name. You can't even be doing partnership. It has to, clearly, it must be limited liability. The question will be whether it will be public limited liability or private, because issue of funding may become very critical. So again, the facts you present will determine what the answer to your question would ultimately be. I don't know if this is helpful, but I think that's what I can say regarding that question. Thank you. Okay, what do I need to know about choosing a name for my business? Yeah, you could choose any name. Any name. But what the usual rule of thumb is this. If you want to select a name, you could just do a Google search, okay? Chances are the name you have in mind, someone has taken it. So if, for instance, you want to register a company as Google Nigeria Limited, I'm sure if I type Google Nigeria Limited now, I could see that that kind of company exists already. But what happens is this. You will typically submit, you could submit even up to 10 names. You could submit up to 10 names to your agent, your lawyer, to run a check for you at CAC. Now, they say these things can be done online. How true that is, I don't know, but you can check for yourself whether you can do it online. Okay, so if you submit up to maybe 10 names, 5 names, chances are 1 or 2 of them will scale through. Another thing I can tell you is this. Names that you form on your own are likely to scale through. So if you decide to use the first names of your 3 kids, chances are no other person would have that name. But if you're just taking a name in the dictionary, chances are someone else would have done the same thing. You know, I tell people that anything, if there's anything you have thought about, maybe 1 million people may have thought about it already. Okay, so you could, if you want to have guarantees regarding the name, you probably have to maybe your first name, your middle name, or your last name. That's how you find some very funny names that people use for their companies. It actually means a lot to them, but it may sound funny to you. But that way you could actually navigate around the name challenge. Thank you. How do I minimize my risks as an employer? Okay, well, how do I minimize my risks as an employer? Well, this seems to be an open-ended question. I do not know in what context you want to limit the risk. You know, so if it is IR risks, that's industrial relation risks you're talking about, that may be outside the scope of our discussion. But what I will typically say is that for every aspect of a company's operations, or for every kind of business you want to go into, there are existing laws that regulate that space. Now, I can tell you that Nigeria has so much laws that we even forget how many that we have. Some law books have not been opened for decades, but they exist. You find out sometimes that the law they have passed today, you have like 3 previous laws like that nobody is even talking about. Okay, so it would depend. So I would expect that to minimize your risk as an employer, I expect that, well, you want to pay to ensure that the taxes are paid like payee. You don't deduct the money and then you don't pass it on to government, because some employers do that. They deduct the staff's money and they don't pay it to government. The same thing they do with pensions. If you deduct pensions, you have to pass it on. Okay, and the Labor Act also sets certain requirements regarding the time frame, the time duration for that your employees can work. But people exceed it. You see people running 12-hour shifts. and they run 12-hour shift for 7 days, that's actually illegal. You're not paying overtime. You're not doing anything. So it's just that you don't have employees that are whistleblowing. Because if you blow that whistle, then nobody is going to employ that staff again. So they keep quiet. They accept the atrocities. You shortchange them and all of that, and then they keep quiet. But as I said, I don't know the context from which you are asking the question, but there are laws that regulate every aspect of employer-employee relations that you'll be looking at, and you need expert advice to actually know how you insulate yourself. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much for that.
How do I ensure I'm on the side of the government so as to avoid future clash? Okay, that again is very easy. I can tell you on your own, you cannot know whether you're on the side of government. The laws are too many, just too many. But there are law firms that are proficient in providing this kind of service. Okay, so what they typically do, if you have the resources to accommodate that, if you engage any of those firms, they look at the sector of business in which you're playing, and then they spool out all the laws that operate in that space. They spool out all the laws that operate in that space, and then they identify all the liabilities. They identify all the expectations and all of that. And then they can help you organize your operations and structure it in such a way that it is aligned with those laws. You cannot do it on your own. Even as a lawyer, I cannot claim to know all the laws. I may know the ones that relate to my area of operation, but I can't necessarily speak on aviation. I can't necessarily speak on maybe water business. Okay, so they are limitless, but you don't need to give yourself the headache. Get a proper law firm. Now, everybody tells you they have the proficiency to deliver on that front. That's not necessarily the case. So you also have to be very wary. You could seek recommendations from people that have done work for you previously, that people that are good, because people that are good tend to also recommend people that are good, and they can also help you make recommendations and bring in people that can provide service for you in that regard. So when you will develop a register. You will develop a register of your legal obligations. And then periodically, maybe every quarter, you run a check. You do an internal audit. Once in a while, you could bring a company to run an external audit for you to be sure you are complying. Because you can set the rules, but if no one is watching, I can tell you what staff members will do. Some of those policies, procedures, they don't necessarily follow them. They say it's just book, right? But if someone is coming and holding their leg to the fire, tell me how you have done this, tell me how you have done that. And it's not just for you to say, you have to show paperwork. If you are supposed to send a report, they want to see the report. If you are supposed to have an engagement with the regulator, they want to see the minutes of meeting. Now, if you do that periodically, you can avoid clashes with the government. And above all, make sure you pay government money. If you don't pay government money, then you are bound to have problems. Even when there is none, there will be problems. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We need to pay the government their money, give to Caesar what is Caesar's. Okay, there are a few questions here again.
Okay. Well, yeah, I talked about the shelf companies, and you're asking the benefits or advantages. Well, I've said that. What I said was that the shelf companies, if, for instance, if you get a phone call today to say, okay, I need you to do this business. I need to see your documents tomorrow. Put in your documents tomorrow. Now, you are not likely going to be able to register a company to meet that deadline. But if you go to those service providers, they could give you, typically the way shelf companies are bought, you will ask them for names. It's okay, let me see what you have in your portfolio. Okay, so they could give you up to 5, 6, 7 names, depending on the sector, limited by shares, unlimited, and all of that. And then you will choose. So you could just submit that name. You could quickly submit that name, and a change of directors and shareholders, that takes 24 hours. Okay, so as you're doing that, you could actually have your full documentation for that business. You could have them the next day. But if you're registering a new company, you're not likely going to meet the timeline. For instance, they say availability is 24 hours. I doubt that is the case. I'm not castigating anybody, but I doubt if that is the case. You could try it. You could ask someone to run availability for you. Let's see how long it takes. And after the availability, then you do registration. I think you may take up to maybe 1 or 2 weeks registering a company or more. Okay, that's number one. Number two, some clients that you want to go into business with, they want to see that you're not just waking up to say you are a going concern. No. So they want to deal with a company that has history, a company that has record. The shelf companies, they don't necessarily have to transact any business. They don't use the shelf companies to transact any business. But the names exist because the certificate of incorporation will show the date. So it means you could actually purchase today a company that has a history, a 2 or 3 year history, and it gives you an advantage. You stand a better chance than a man who brings a company that was registered last week. So that is part of the benefit that you get. Okay, and you could also change the name to the name that you want. You could change the shareholding, so you actually lose nothing. It may prove more expensive in the long run because the man that registered that company would take his setup cost plus markup. Okay, but that's relatively small because they don't charge so much for them. Okay, but if you compare it to the benefit you will get by getting involved in that rush order, that cost is probably insignificant. So I don't know if I've answered your question, but that's pretty much what I can say about that. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. Someone's asking a question, but it's a long one. I'm just skeptical. Okay, let me put it up. Let's see how it pans out. Good afternoon.
Bound in the countries right now.
That's more of a comment than a question.
I've not seen the question yet.
Yeah, it's more of a comment.
It's a comment, I believe. Well, intellectual property, you have to register it. Save your Deki, I think from Abuja, is asking, how can I protect my intellectual property in view of the imminent danger of business hijackers? Well, if you do not register your intellectual property, you can't even say it is your own. You have to register it, and some of the things people call intellectual property are not, something that is existing everywhere. Some people say is intellectual property. I'm not saying that is your case, okay, but We typically would ask people to register whatever they feel is their intellectual property. And if you register it, then it will be difficult for someone to claim it. And I think I understand why you are asking that question. For instance, you want to set up a business. Before now, you need to set up that business with someone else so that you have at least 2 shareholders, which has now changed. Now, there is no way you can go into a business with someone and not tell him what it is you want to do. And then if you don't have that control framework, like shareholders agreement duly signed, you may have challenges with that partner who separates from you, starts his own business, and actually proceed to do that thing you are planning to do. Now, but if it is not something that is ascribed to you, you can't actually say the person has stolen it, although deep inside you, you know he has stolen it. But, well, as I said, anything you think about, chances are 1 million people have also thought about it. It's just that, one, they are probably not, they were too slow in taking off or doing anything about it, or maybe they lack the funds to do it. So if I tell people, your ideas are for you, and you don't achieve any value telling people your ideas because they run with it anyway. Ideas are key. Coca-Cola that people are drinking today, the recipe is top secret. That's why no one can produce any drink like Coca-Cola. It's top secret. And you go to some restaurants, even if you are not there when they bought it, if they bring the food to you, you will know that this food is from XYZ restaurant because they have that special taste. That recipe, they are hiding it. Okay, but if you now share it with your friend or your colleague that has a restaurant down the road and they begin to cook like you, then you have lost out. You can't say, why are you cooking my recipe? Who says it's your recipe? It's not registered anywhere. So that's basically what I have to say about that. Thanks. Next question, please.
So, how do you really go about registering that? Just to put a word on behalf of Sylvia, how would you go about registering? Is there, I know that for researchers, there's something like ITO, intellectual property, and something I understand is located in Abuja also. So for business ideas, what agency is responsible for this?
Okay, well, you have again. There's a hallback. It will depend on the nature of intellectual content that is that you want to register. But you have, for instance, the Copyright Act. Copyright Act handles some part of it, a large chunk of it, where you deal with some of these ideas, and then there's also Agency for the Protection of Intellectual Property, NOTAP, and all of that. They are all based in Abuja, but there's a process around that. Now, it's not every lawyer that can operate in that space. You know, Nigerian lawyers are generalists, okay, but you still have specialists who that is all they do. So from Monday to Friday, they sit down, they deal with intellectual property, and they will be in a better position to advise you on how these things can be done. Thank you. What should be my operating agreement or bylaw? Operating agreement or bylaw. Bylaw, you will have bylaw if you're talking about incorporated trustees, but operating agreement, well, I'm not sure I know what you're talking about, but if it is operating agreement of a company, I don't know if I understand you correctly, because you recall I said you could agree on certain things. If, for instance, in the shareholders agreement, you have a particular shareholder being responsible for the operations. So you may actually have an operating service agreement with that particular shareholder. Okay, and it will state, even though we have standard templates for most agreements, but at the end of the day, the agreements actually contain what the parties intend for it to contain. Okay, so you may want to have, if there's an operating service agreement, of course, remuneration should be key. If you are the one running the operations, you want to be remunerated from it. And then you want to have latitude to carry out certain activities without the other shareholders drawing you back. So what would be the extent of that latitude that you have? At what point could they pull back and all of that? So these are the kind of things that you should state in your agreement. But bottom line, I think the take home should be that your agreement will contain whatever you want it to contain. Okay? Although lawyers will typically resort to templates, it's the same thing people do. You're setting up a company, you're not interested in what is contained in the memorandum of association. You're also not interested in what is contained in the articles of association, but you want to run a business. That's not okay. So you could actually sit down and determine for yourself the things that you want to be in your operating agreement. And it is left for your business advisor, the lawyer, to tell you whether or not it is practicable to write that or not to write that. Because some of the things you want to write may actually take effect by operation of law. So if whether or not you write it, it will take effect anyway. You understand? So rather than duplicate, you could rely on operations of law and run with whatever you want to run. But I cannot pretend to fully understand your question. So I don't know if I have addressed it at all. So thank you. Okay, thank you. You say I've addressed it. Thank you. Okay. Jimo is asking whether there's any grant or government loan that doesn't have interest. Quite frankly, I don't know. But what I know is during the pandemic, we read in the papers that money was being distributed as palliatives to people, businesses. I don't know how many people that got that. I don't know the terms of that disbursement. Okay, but I doubt that money will just be given to someone like that. I doubt it. Okay, so quite frankly, I don't have any answer to this question. The financial advisors will be in a better position to deal with it. Thank you. Okay, Onyedikachi, thank you. Yeah, is that all?
Yes, for now, that's all we have here in terms of the question. I think you've done a very exhaustive work, I would say, even if you keep saying there is a need for you to ask some. Yeah, of course. You talked about financial advisors who are specialized in some areas, but giving us a framework, I consider personally, it's my opinion, and I see some very beautiful comments here that you have done a very holistic work, and I think we are better informed right now to know how to understand the dynamics of getting into the market, of registering our businesses, and really making all the difference out there. Thank you so very much. We're really, really grateful. Okay, so before I make my own comment, the president and founder of the Young Engineers Entrepreneurship Club would really want to appreciate you for the time that you have spent with us. We recognize the fact that you are a very busy person, but you have taken out time to be here with us. And I mean, putting that slide up for this conference must have taken your own time. Spending over 2 hours right here talking with us, it's more than enough. You were right here with us even before we brought you on stream. we don't take this for granted at all. We don't handle it with kid gloves. Want to say a very big thank you to you, Engineer Kingston, sir.
Nice to show how much we enjoyed this session. In fact, I'm so happy. Let me tell you, our presenter, one thing that the greatest beneficiary of this particular session is me. So I want to thank you very much. Very exhaustive and educative section we have with you. Thank you. And I believe that people watching, the participants across the society, they are also enjoying what you just believe that business will jack up. People will now know what to do going about doing business in Nigeria, because fears are making a lot of people not to invest money. You know, yesterday I was talking to somebody who invested 100 million naira in the MBS forest. That money could have opened an industry and employed some people. Because he's afraid of business. All he just wanted to get is return of investment of 15%. He lost if at all MBA forest will come back. If it doesn't come back, he lost the money. So these fears has made a lot of people not to invest. Thank God for this section. You have been able to, clear the doubts and how to go about it. We are very grateful, and you've been a very wonderful person to East Africa, and you cannot always out that. Thank you on behalf of all of us, the live audience, the technical team, in fact, related to the board of trustees of Geek Africa and the Policy Council to say maybe thank you for being with us this afternoon. Thank you again, and God bless. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sir Franklin Diane. It's been 2 hours of your time given to the society what is most needed. And to all the viewers from all the social media platforms, those streaming online, those in the live audience, you can agree with me that you have really been empowered, you have been better informed to make better decisions, and also to know where to place yourself at the moment. It's been about the boundless opportunity in the new normal post-COVID. It has been a very beautiful time with the speaker, Sir Franklin Gogo Dieng, who is the Head Counsel, Litigation and Regulatory Risk Management, Nigeria LNG Limited. He spoke rather on legal and regulatory framework for setting up a business in Nigeria. Just the same way I've been countering his statement, I don't see what more he would have said and how much more justice he would have done to this topic outside of what has been done. I want to say a very big thank you to him once again, and to everyone streaming from different parts of the country. And of course, we have a few persons from outside of Nigeria streaming at this time. I want to say a very big thank you to you. Thank you so much, and God bless you. We're going to have this conference again tomorrow, just as it is my own decision not to let the cat out of the bag, but we just want to say tune in to this particular channel, which is the YouTube channel of the Young Engineers Entrepreneurship Club, as well as that of the Facebook channel for tomorrow's section. Of course, the speaker, as well as what he will be talking about, is yet to be unraveled. Just like you are not expecting the big one, the heavyweight who spoke to us. I mean, someone who understands and knows his onions, and you can tell that he really provided value to us this afternoon. And so it's going to be right here again by 2 p.m. tomorrow, the 25th of February 2021, West African time. Thank you so very much, everyone, and God bless you.
The problem of unemployment gives rise to the problem of poverty. Young people, after a long time of unemployment, find the wrong way to earn money. To get a hideout from the unemployment stress, they accept alcohol or drugs. But we have found a way to help you, yes, you, to get a job, internship, or become self-employed. Hi, my name is Irene. Do you want a place where your innovative ideas and inventions will be amplified and showcased to the world to attract investors and linkages? Are you interested in building a career in the oil and gas industry? Do you have desire to learn cinematography and photography at no cost? Do you want financial aid or seek capital for entrepreneurial development? Or are you interested in ICT software development and surveillance training? Well, Geek Africa is the biggest and newest platform to help you achieve your dreams. As Geek Africa, we will hold your hands through the process by offering you the needed mentorships, trainings, fundings, and linkages. All Geek Africa programs are free for our members. So, hurry now, register, and become a member of Geek Africa. How do you register? Simply log on www.geekafrica.com/membership to choose your preferred membership category. When done, a unique membership code will be sent to you. Use your membership code to apply at www.geekafrica.com/programs. Download the form, fill it, scan it, and send it back to us at programs@geekafrica.com. To get all our announcements and updates, join our Telegram group for direct conversations at t.me/Geek Telegram. Being a part of Geek Africa and getting our free trainings will be one of the best decisions you ever made. Your future self will thank you.